I'm back.
What's up?
Hi.
Happy podcast day. This is pre um
Doctor.
sorry.
Free is fine.
Dr. Pre. No. Um but yeah, we're really excited to have Pre on today. Pre is a psychologist and she's also an executive coach. Um and she focuses on neurodivergence. So autism, ADHD, ADHD, and we're going to talk about a lot of things with her today. So, welcome, Pri.
Thank you. I'm jazzed.
Yeah, like we're so jazzed too. I did want to get some housekeeping out of the way very quickly. So, we were teasing that like we were going to do something special because it's our birthday month, and on I guess the 20, what did we say, the 29th? On the 29th, so that's next week already. Wow. This month went by so fast. So on the
Fast
29th,
time.
I know, we're going to announce a giveaway that we're going to do. So we just set up our merch site on Redbubble. You can find it at on our link tree. And we're going to give away some merch for our birthday. And it'll be kind of like a raffle style where everybody will just like buy a ticket and yeah, and it'll go on for a month. So like you'll have a month to buy tickets to have your chance to like win some Burnout Collective merch, t-shirts, stickers, stuff like that. Yes, a giveaway. So yeah, we're very excited about that, but that's next week. We also wanted to thank you guys again for getting us to over 500 downloads. Really appreciate your follows, your listens, and your subscriptions on iTunes, Spotify, and everything like that. So thank you guys so much. And last but not least, if you buy or gift any 2 subs right now on Twitch, I think it's until the 25th, you can get a free month of like Crunchyroll subscription. So I'll just leave that there for anyone who feels like gifting some subs or subscribing themselves. And that's it. Housekeeping done. We're house kept. Oops.
So yeah, Pri, do you just kind of want to start us in and kind of talk a little bit about what you do? I know we glossed over your specialties, but sort of what you're focusing on right now.
Sure. So I am a licensed psychologist. So I have a private practice, a group practice, and at that one called Asha Mental Health, we're focused on therapy services and assessment services. Our kind of specialty areas are neurodivergence, especially adult neurodivergence, and then multiculturally inclusive care. So, kind of important to be a safe space for all the minority identified folks out there, the folks with marginalized identities. So, a lot of BIPOC folks, LGBTQ, disabled, etc. So through that, I do some therapy still, and then I do adult ADHD and autism assessments. And then I also have a coaching and consulting business where I'm like an ADHD and executive coach. So that's focused on, again, usually like late diagnosed ADHDers, the folks that are high performing but burning out and like needing some support. So I have a group coaching program, which is currently running, called Surviving to Thriving, which is kind of like an 8-week crash course in all things ADHD and reworking your identity and shame and all the fun stuff that comes with late diagnosis. And then I also do individual coaching. So
And
got my hands full.
yeah, you do have your hands full. You're doing so much, but like we love everything you're doing, and literally just happened across you on Instagram one day, and also she has a killer Instagram and TikTok,
Thank
so
you.
follow her
Yeah.
at Asha Coach. She also what was the series you're doing? What the
Oh,
Why
why
the
the
fuck
fuck
is
is
this
this
so
so
hard?
hard?
Yeah, why the fuck is this so hard? which is great because it's like, why the fuck is this so hard when I'm neurodivergent? A lot of like just tips from everything from like relationships to money to work. Man, she does a really good job.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a fun one to film. I've gotten a couple of people upset with me for the name, but for the most part, everyone's like, "Yeah, why the fuck is this so hard?"
We voted for the name.
So
We voted for the name. We were
you
like,
did, you
yes,
did vote for it.
that one.
One of the things I really appreciated is yesterday when we were chit-chatting a little bit, you mentioned that these some of the adults you're working with are actually older. Like there's a
Yeah.
couple people in their you said 50s or 60s, which
Hmm.
has to be such a relief for them just to have someone who takes them seriously and listens after all this time, especially if that wasn't something that was really encouraged as they were growing up.
Yeah, definitely. I was um pleasantly surprised by like kind of the age spread that I have in my group and just generally in my following. Because it's cool to be able to speak to like people in all parts of life, but I think especially for like humans alive today, like so many people are getting diagnosed later because we just have way more nuanced understandings of what ADHD and autism look like in adulthood that we just did not have even 5, 10 years ago. And so all these folks are getting to like for the women, they're getting to like perimenopause, menopause, their brains are like short circuiting, and then they're like, what the fuck is going on? And that's when they're getting diagnosed. And so it's like it's an intense, like emotionally heavy process to go through learning all this, especially, in your 50s and 60s, like you've gone through so much of your life holding so many beliefs and ideas about you and your flaws and how you work, and to kind of like rework all of that is like really meaningful stuff. I feel really honored that these folks are in this group and working through this stuff with me.
Yeah, I know Rebecca and I were also like late diagnosed, and just like in our late 30s, it was just like, oh my God, like, how did I go so long just like
Mhm.
trying to get around these seemingly like obstacles when I thought I was supposed to fit in this cookie cutter thing and have this schedule and be able to do X, Y, and Z like everybody else, and or like in a specific way, that everybody else does it. So I can't imagine, yeah, like getting it as late as like in your 50s. Like,
I've had people sending me messages on Instagram in their like 70s, being like, I'm in my 70s, I'm just realizing that this fits me. Um, and that is like so touching that they're sharing that with me and that like I get to play a role in that process. And also like I feel so sad for them because that's so long to believe that there's something wrong with you. Um, and like not be able to access all these like resources and tools that would like totally be a game changer. So I
yeah.
I my little Instagram channel, which just like or account or whatever the fuck it's called, um, has like exploded very quickly, and I'm so grateful because I have this like beautiful little positive corner of the internet. Like it's so rare to go through multiple posts and like almost never have a negative comment. I had one person make a negative comment about my cursing, and like 5 people came at them. And like at my
That's
back,
great.
but it just like feels really good like in the world that we're in today to like have a little positive corner of the internet. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
been really
great.
fun.
I'm
Excellent.
so glad there's not too many haters because it can get like that.
Very few. And like the ones that don't like me are like really entertaining. Like I really hate the voice filter you use. It's annoying. And I'm like, sorry, bud, that's just me. To tell you.
Wait, they're saying
Their
like,
favorite thing to do oh, yeah, their favorite thing to do is talk to millennial women about their vocal fry. Like, you have a PhD, you have a doctorate, you have whatever. It doesn't matter if you have vocal fry, dead to them.
Then watch the
Insane.
captions. Mute me. I don't
Yes.
care.
I think you have a beautiful voice. So I
Thank
think,
you.
yeah, everyone else can go fuck themselves. So,
Yeah, I would also, especially just because like the current age we are in, I would love to dig a little bit more into, and I feel like this is something that I either didn't know about or people haven't really known about is perimenopause and ADHD symptoms like
yeah.
Mhm,
starting to get worse or not being able to push through those anymore. Especially
mhm.
with women who have like teens at this point and you feel like your head's gonna explode and there's actually a reason for it and it's not because you're going crazy.
Yeah, well, there's a good reason you didn't know it, and it's because researchers don't pour enough money into researching women. And so the studies researching this like legitimately came out, I think, this year or last year. Like they're brand fucking new. So Yeah, that's why you didn't know about it, because nobody looked. You know, we were just being hysterical and hormonal. Um, but it's so common, so common for women to not get diagnosed, especially like today's Gen Xers, millennials, etc. Like, because up until like the 90s, there was like a belief that like women didn't really get ADHD, girls didn't really get ADHD. Up until the 2000s, we believed that you grew out of it by adulthood, so adults don't have ADHD, all of which is like utter BS. And so when you get to perimenopause and menopause, what happens is what they're realizing is there's a link between estrogen and ADHD symptoms. And so when the estrogen drops in perimenopause, the ADHD symptoms get like way worse. Um, and so you already have the menopause symptoms, and then you throw in like amped up ADHD. And so like the word finding goes through the roof, the short-term memory issues go through the roof, the like sense of general overwhelm goes through the roof. And because women historically have been misdiagnosed as just anxious, we get written off as, again, like I said, being dramatic or being anxious or just hormonal through perimenopause. And now they finally have research saying, like, no, actually, objectively, your ADHD does get worse and your brain does feel like it's short circuiting. It's like the number of women I have come in for assessments in that menopause stage is like, it's actually the majority of the folks that I
Oh,
end up
wow.
assessing, because they all were like, I made it through and now I just cannot, like, I just can't function anymore. I don't know if I can upkeep my business. I don't know if I can manage my kiddos. Like, I feel like I'm
Mm.
losing it.
Yeah, the word finding and the sensory overload of like just being hot or itchy or uncomfortable all the time. So that made me already freaked out, but then just I could not remember words for the life of me. It was driving me insane. And I was like, is this dementia? Is it Alzheimer's?
Hmm.
And so then that just made everything else worse because I couldn't concentrate because I'm obviously crazy. And it was just like this Ouroboros of just ratcheting up every symptom I've ever had. It was nuts.
Yeah, I have a lot of women come to me saying, like, am I in cognitive decline? And, you know, it's good to get that tested, especially if you've got like a family history. We want to roll things out.
Sure.
And people really have underestimated, misjudged. I just like combined my words. Um, the like degree of impairment or impact that comes with unmanaged ADHD. Like, I think historically we've thought of like the little kid bouncing in a seat in the classroom, and like when you translate that up to adulthood, it's pretty impactful. Like, it makes everything a fuckload harder at a chapter
Mm-hmm.
in life when you have so much in your brain, so much to manage, especially if you're a woman and a mom or in a partnership, and like there's all the like societal, you know, extra expectations around mental load and emotional labor. It just like all compounds on itself. Like for me, I didn't get diagnosed till after my first kid, and that was when I felt like my brain was imploding, because I like the mental load of motherhood, plus like at that point I was in like upper leadership in a group practice, and like
Wow.
just general life and that hormone swing too. I was like, I am so overwhelmed, but like the word anxious didn't like quite fit right because I wasn't globally anxious. Um, it was just like if I could turn down the volume on all the things constantly pinging in my brain and like get a grasp on them, then I would be fine. But it was that sense of not being able to get a grasp on everything that was floating around that just like finally got my therapist to convince me, like, hey, maybe go get assessed.
Are they looking at, or I mean, I say this knowing that the answer is going to be no, but are they looking at a difference, what it makes for women in perimenopause who with hormone replacement therapy and or ADHD medication and or, therapy? Uh, are they looking at that at all to see like what's helpful, or have there been any studies on like what can help with that?
I would love to think that they are. I don't know that I've seen that. I mean, logically, it would make sense that hormone replacement stuff would help along with obviously the meds. Just given that if it's the drop in estrogen that is
Yeah.
impacting the symptoms, and like mitigating for that should be helpful. Um, but I don't actually know. I mean, this research is so freaking new that like I
Yeah.
and like we now have an admin that won't let us research women, so I actually don't know.
Yeah.
So
Ah.
sorry, I like didn't mean
No.
to poke the
No, it has
political
to come
bear,
up. I
but
feel like it somehow comes up in every episode, which is like fine.
well,
It's
especially
just
if you're talking about neurodivergence, because like,
yeah.
what are we doing?
I was gonna say, oh sorry, Rebecca.
No, go
Oh,
go ahead.
I was gonna say too. I don't think I'm in perimenopause yet. I am like I'm that age, but I didn't even realize you were talking about just the drop in estrogen. Like for medical reasons, I had to stop taking estrogen. And I did notice everything I can't even remember if that was like right before I got diagnosed. I think it was like around that same time. And I didn't realize like that could have been making it so much worse to where I got to where I finally, unfortunately, it took it that long to get so bad for me to be like, I have to seek something out for this.
Yeah, and that also explains why, for many of us, like depending on where we are in our cycle, our ADHD is worse too. And so if
Right.
you're working with a psychiatrist who gets that, sometimes you'll get somebody who will give you like a booster dose for like when you're in your luteal phase, because that's when like your estrogen is lowest and your symptoms are worst. But then a lot of most med providers are not super well versed on what all these things look like in women and how the hormones play in. And so then they are just like, it's just PMS or it's
Yeah.
just PMDD and like kind of write it off. Um, but yeah, like if you've know if you've ever been on your cycle and noticed that there was a particular week of the month that always like your brain is off the rails beyond just like um higher emotional distress or whatever the stereotypes are of PMS, um, like your ADHD probably was objectively worse during that time period.
Yeah. That's
Is
crazy.
there anything that, like, as far as it showing up in women, is there anything that's sort of against what's considered the norm for ADHD? Or are there surprising different ways that it shows up that people don't necessarily connect with ADHD?
Yeah, I think like there's like two levels to that question. One is a lot of people don't realize all the facets of ADHD, which is why I started my series in the first place. Because I mean, just the executive function series, people were like, I had no idea that these were things that were impacted by ADHD. So generally, there's probably a lot for everybody with ADHD that they didn't realize was ADHD. I know I went through that, and I have a freaking doctorate in clinical psych, and I still was like, wait, what? So, um, yeah, so I've got that caveat. And then for like women and girls, so girls tend to be, not always the case, but tend to be more on the inattentive side than the hyperactive side. So they're the daydreamers, the ones that are spacing out in class, the ones that are kind of like in their own world, which again, like socially is fine, or more acceptable. So it doesn't get pinged the way that like a kid bouncing out of his chair gets pinged by
Mm-hmm.
teachers. It often, like for the ones that are hyperactive, like me, it shows up as being really chatty and social. So like if you were a kiddo who got all the report cards saying like, what a delight to have, but also talks too much in class.
But also won't shut the hell up. So, yeah.
Yep, distracts her classmates by talking too much. Like that is a sign of hyperactivity, which again, like it's just like written off as like really social. Um, you also see, I'm trying to think of like what else are some of those key differences. One of the reasons that it like also presents differently even for the hyperactive girls is because we're socialized from such a young age to like be good, to take up less space, to listen, to not make a fuss, to not be hard, to be
Mm-hmm.
easy. And so because of that, like we internalize the masking like way earlier than the boys do. Um, so like when I talk to girls about like fidgeting and like physical restlessness, it's always something small, or not always, but often. Like it's clicking a pen, it's playing with a ring. It's not getting up out of my seat in the middle of the classroom. So again, like doesn't get flagged by teachers.
Right.
Uh, and then like a lot of the anxiety that comes with trying to mask and trying to like rein in a brain that you don't realize has legitimate reasons for not being reined in, then channels into like perfectionism, or high levels of like anxiety, which
Stop
that tends
diagnosing
to get.
us, Pri. Stop
I'm
diagnosing
sorry.
us right now. Rebecca and I are both
that
like,
tends to get that tends to get noticed,
yeah.
but then it's noticed as anxiety. And
Mm-hmm.
so I would say like the most common misdiagnosis for women is anxiety, because we get generally written off as being overly anxious, or like our emotion dysregulation, which comes with ADHD, gets written off as just being dramatic. And so I think all the like stereotypes there, plus the socialization, plus the fact that we tend to lean a little more inattentive, which isn't as visible, like all of that combines together into this like perfect storm of why we've been missed. Plus the fact that like they didn't think adults could have it and they didn't really think women got it often. Like all that together. And if you throw like autism in there, like the understanding of that is like even worse. And so if you were an autistic or a ADHD girl, like you were for sure going to be missed because again, like you couldn't concurrently diagnose ADHD and autism until I was in grad school. Like that's how recent it is that you can have both.
Wow.
Which is wild because the stats on how many people have both are so high.
Yeah.
And then like they for sure didn't think like women were autistic ever until like the 2000s. And so like Temple Grandin is like such a big name because she was one of the first ones to like really be like, hi, clearly autistic here. Let's talk about it. Um, so I mean like those factors all together, like everything gets missed because, you know, if you're quiet or you're shy or like you are sensitive, like it just gets kind of written off as like girly features. I don't know how else to put that, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Lots of. Is that also, I don't know, I keep thinking about how, in my experience, every man I know falls asleep so easily. But as soon as my head hits the pillow, my brain is like, like overtime. Like, I mean, it's always overtime, but it's like overtime. Yeah, I just think.
Yes, that's hyperactivity. So like our hyperactivity is internalized. So it happens in our thoughts, it happens in our like level of overwhelm and anxiety. So
Lucky us.
yeah, it's like I know, so fun. So yeah, it's like our brain can't turn off. Um, and that's usually like where we get so burnt out. And then ADHD comes with sleep issues anyways. Like ADHD disrupts circadian rhythms and melatonin production anyways. So you combine that with a brain that can't stop. And like, yeah, no shit, we can't sleep.
Yeah.
It was really, I mean, it was interesting too, like how, fuck, I just, see, this is what happens. I had a thought and now it is gone.
Happens all the time.
You're in good
Ah,
company.
and
We were talking about
it'll
our
come back to
brains
me.
not shutting off.
Oh, I was gonna say, so as along with women too, like a lot of us have been self-medicating with energy drinks, coffee, like all this other stuff too.
Mhm.
Uh, as you get older and it gives you heartburn and you can't drink it anymore and just like, oh my God, what is happening? That was another thing that just
Yeah.
it's like, oh, something's wrong. No, it's just because you have the caffeine to like be going on a study level. So yeah, it's been really interesting having everything kind of unravel
Mhm.
midlife.
Yeah, I feel like this is absolutely not diagnostic criteria at all, but I feel like if we ask people like, can you drink coffee and go to bed? Like that should be a pretty good indicator that like there's some ADHD potentially happening there because like coffee is a stimulant, right? So that makes our brains function as they should.
Yeah.
And I know like my whole family, we drink a cup of coffee at 11 and then go to bed. Like that is just like part of the nighttime routine in my family. And we've always just been like, caffeine doesn't affect us. No, actually, like our brains are just really needing a stimulant.
That's crazy. That's not me at
And the
all.
caffeine was making us like partially functional. Obviously, everyone's brain is different. Everybody's like body chemistry works differently. So that's not like
I
a
never
global rule.
thought
And
of
that's
that
why
though, because I know so many people who are like, no, it doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect me,
I would love to do a study on like how many of the people that say it doesn't affect them have
Yes.
ADHD because
Yeah.
I think that's just like that's what kicks our brain on. And
Well, they
like
used to give kids coffee like in elementary school when they were little, like before they had, I mean, like legitimately, my friend was a teacher's aide in the 90s and she would give the ADHD kids like a cup of coffee in the morning, just kind of even them out.
yeah, I mean it's just like, it's a shortcut way to kick your brain on,
My seventh
which is like why so many of us drink so many energy drinks, like you said, or too many cups of coffee in a day.
my seventh grade teacher used to send me and my friend because like we were like restless during last period, and
Mhm.
so she used to just be like, go run around the block. And I don't think she was supposed to do that at all, but she would literally just say, go run around the block, and we would go run around the block.
And it was probably super regulating.
Yeah, it was great. It was wonderful. I feel like, yeah, she was making accommodations for us, and like I didn't even realize it.
Hmm. Well, that's why I know, like, and this totally varies by school district and school, but like more schools are allowing for kids to like sit on bouncy balls instead of sitting on
Yes.
like chairs or like have the little rubber bands under their feet so they can wiggle. And it makes so much sense because just a little bit of movement can keep your brain on track in a really significant way. And that's such an easy accommodation to make to help kiddos like stay present and get the
My
wiggles out.
daughter's
Like my kid could not sit still if his life depended on it.
my daughter's school has like standing desks, wiggle chairs. sensory room.
Love
Most of our
that.
kids there are like on 504s or IEP. But I mean, they've really the focus they get out of these kids, where before they were quote like in trouble or the bad kids,
Yeah.
is
Hmm.
because they're able to just get it out and focus.
Yeah, I mean, I know, like, if you've ever paced when you're talking on the phone because it helps you listen, like,
Always. Yeah.
so many of us listen better when we're in movement and can stay, like, focused on what we're doing when we're, like, our hands are occupied or our bodies are occupied. Um, so, yeah, it seems, like, silly to force kids to sit in desks. Plus, like, nobody who's 5 can sit still. Like, that's just an absurd expectation anyways. Um,
For real.
but yeah,
Have a
I
lot
mean,
of the people who's come to you, like, have they had their kids diagnosed first and then been like, oh, by the way,
yeah, a lot of folks, both, like, that show up for assessment and that are just, like, following on Instagram and commenting and things. It's often my kid got diagnosed, and then as I was reading about it or as they were tested, I realized that I had all the same stuff. And a lot of times, like, part of why kids or like these adults are getting diagnosed later too is because like their parents had ADHD or were autistic and didn't flag it as different because nobody flagged them as being different. And therefore, when their kid does whatever quirky thing they do or whatever ADHD like thing they do, they're just like, well, I was just like that. That's just kids being kids. And so like it becomes like a generational stack
jeez.
of like everybody writing off the stuff because they're just like the generation above, not realizing that like, hey, all of you guys are neurodivergent. Welcome.
I
So
would I would love for you to diagnose my parents. Like that would be awesome. Yeah.
I finally gotten my dad to the stage where he's like, well, maybe I'm like a little bit ADHD. And I'm like, uh-huh.
All the Star
Yeah.
Trek dads out there are like suddenly on the defense.
My dad's a Star Trek dad.
That was mine.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But yeah, so many people are like, I see so much of myself in my kid, and it was easier to get my kid identified and diagnosed because teachers now are more informed, doctors now are more
Yeah.
informed. And so like so much of my life now makes sense watching it through my kid.
They still make it so difficult though too for adults to get diagnoses. Like
Yes, because so many people are bad at it, if I'm being honest. Like I
My
get in like a good online fight with a assessor at least once a week, if not more, over like stupid shit like if you have a job, you can't have ADHD. If you manage to get married
what?
and keep a career, you can't have ADHD. If you make eye contact, you can't be autistic. You did small talk, therefore you can't be neurodivergent. And like all this, it's just like dead wrong. But I mean, I can attest to our training not being up to date, so therefore it makes sense that all this, unless you've gone and sought out the information yourself, like, of course you're not up to date.
Didn't you say you had like a day or like a week's worth of education on neurodivergence for your
A
whole
week,
schooling?
yeah, a week would have been really good. It was like an hour of a class.
A week
Oh
would have
shit.
been
Oh, okay.
generous. Fuck.
Yeah. Let me put the caveat that like I didn't specialize in child and adolescent, and I'm guessing they probably got more. I was more kind of a general psych, but no, it was like one. We had like a class in our first year that went through the DSM and went through all the diagnoses, and I think like we spent an hour on neurodevelopmental stuff, maybe two,
Ugh.
um, and that was it. And it was like in reference to kiddos, like it wasn't in reference to adults, which is like how I made it through grad school and got my degree and did not recognize that I had ADHD
That's
because I
insane.
had like no clear picture of what that looks like,
You
which is so
so
sad.
It
in your
is.
coaching, like you work on like is there like an acceptance? Like is there like no, I can't be, or like do people come to accept it, or is it more like a relief, or are they just kind of in denial when they get their diagnosis? How have people reacted?
Yes.
Okay.
It's all the above. I mean, I think there's relief in that like there's an explanation for why things are hard. There's worry that you're making it up or faking it because what if I'm just being dramatic? What if I just lied about it? What if it's really not that hard? Um, there's grief over like what could things have looked like if I had known this sooner. There's anger over all the people that missed it along the way. Um,
Yeah.
Sometimes when you start meds too, you go through another mini cycle of that because if you start the meds and they work for you and your brain turns on, And then you're like, what the fuck? I could have felt this way forever. And also, there's a whole subset of humans that get to feel this way without having to take meds. Like, what is this? So, we're actually just talking about that in my coaching program today. Um, so it's like a very emotional process. And like
It
in our group
is.
coaching program, I start with like our first one is just kind of like overlay of like let's understand what ADHD is, let's understand parts of the brain, let's understand generally what executive function is. And like our second week is all about like shame and rewriting your inner narrative because I don't think you can work on implementing new schedules for yourself or advocating for stuff at work or any of those other pieces if you're still like drowning in the shame over what's hard for you.
Yeah.
So we do like a whole like week deep dive on where does shame come from? Why do you have such a hard time with self-trust? Like, let's learn to rewrite those narratives and like put a different explanation for why you've done the things that you've done.
That's such a big
Um,
part. That's such a big part of it too, is the shame. Yeah.
yes. Yeah, I've yet to meet an ADHDer that didn't internalize some of that.
That's got to be nice to just have someone walk you through it and holding your hand and just, can you talk more about like your coaching? I mean, you said it's
Yeah.
8 weeks. Can you kind of take us through
Hmm.
sort of like what you do and what you're working on? Is it like just self-acceptance or to accommodate?
Yeah, so it is kind of like I said, it's an 8 week crash course, and I'm actually getting feedback from everybody on there that 8 is too short. So maybe I'll adjust it for future cohorts. But each week we have a different like topic area that we're diving into. So week one was like understanding your ADHD brain. That's where we talked about like the neurochemistry of it, our motivation systems, our executive functions, etc. The second week was rewriting your narrative. The third week, which is what we're in right now, was time and productivity and like how to manage all your to-do lists, how to manage time, why it's so hard for you to figure out how to do your schedule, things like that. And so each week I teach for an hour. So I have like kind of course content. I usually have a couple like mini pre-recorded lessons that are like 10, 15 minutes that go deeper into certain topics. Um, and then I do a group coaching call like later in the week where anybody that's getting stuck on anything can like raise their hand and get coached on whatever they're wrestling with that week. And then there's a workbook too, but I know who my audience is, so I'm guessing out of the like 13 people I have, 1 to 2 have opened the workbook. But,
There should be like a
there is that.
surprise in there or something. Like,
There should be. Well, I just like to remind everybody that like you have access to all these recordings forever. You've got access to these workbooks forever. Like if now is not the time, like you're too flooded or there's too much going on, that's okay. Like this is one of those spaces where you can't do it wrong because you've spent your whole life telling yourself you're doing it wrong.
right.
So if you never crack a workbook, you've still done it right. It just like that wasn't the tool you needed right now, and that's fine. Um, so there's also like my favorite part of it is the community space that we have. So I'm on Circle. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but um, it's kind of like if Slack and Facebook had a baby.
Oh.
And so it's kind of and like added in like courses. So it's just like one kind of
Don't give
community
Meta
hub, but
any
we've
more
got
ideas. I'm just kidding.
that's true. You didn't hear any of that. But there's like different discussion boards. So there's places where they can post what they want to be working on for accountability. There's places to like ask questions about the call content. There's places to share wins.
That's awesome.
And so it's fun to see people like connect with each other and relate to each other because even if you don't share your own stuff, you're probably going to hear something from somebody else that sounds familiar and is really validating.
Are you talking about like making your own accommodations at work at all? Are you talking about asking for accommodations at work or learning how to? Do you mind talking a bit? Because I think a lot of actually late diagnosis.
Oh, I think your audio is
Yeah,
cutting out a
your
little. At least it was
audio's
for me.
cutting out. You might want to move the mic closer.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I missed the tail end of your question.
Oh, no, I just are you helping people like learn to work within the confines of their brain or like learning how to ask for accommodations or make their own accommodations or just because you mentioned a lot of them are dealing with burnout. So can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, next week's module is actually all about like work and figuring out what parts of work are hard and why, and then what you want to do with it. So, um, we talk about like what kinds of accommodations could be available to you, which a lot of times people don't realize like you don't actually have to officially have a diagnosis to ask for accommodations. A lot of workplaces don't require you to disclose a diagnosis.
Right.
And then if you do disclose a diagnosis, like they have to work with you within like reasonable means. Granted, every company gets to decide what counts as reasonable. But we are going to be talking about like what are some of the ways that you can talk to your boss that doesn't like set off red flags or that like advocates for yourself without selling yourself short, because like I can do the thing, I just can't do the thing the way that you just asked me to do it, or I can do it the way you asked me, but it won't be as good as if I do it my way. So using phrasing like, you know, I work best when I'm most successful. I could see this going really well if, and then, yeah, I mean, there's lots of creative ways to think about accommodations. Like it could be from, you know, the big ones people ask for, like being able to work remotely or having flex time on like when they arrive and when they leave.
That's me.
Because ADHDers, if you've got a workplace that like starts at the hour on the dot, that's often tough for us. There is a good subset of folks that can do that, that it can be on time and get their asses there. I am not one of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I had a job where I got fired for being a minute late, I would be fired so fast. Um,
If my friends could fire me for being a minute late, like I would be, I would have no friends. Rebecca,
I have some that like,
don't you dare look like that. She's like,
I have a friend that like legitimately gives me the wrong start time because they've learned that like I will not show up at the time that's stated. And part of that I think is cultural. I'm gonna blame it because my whole family runs late, which we always called Indian Standard Time. Because like if you invite Indians over for dinner at 8, they will be there at 10, and that's like pretty culturally normative. So either we're all ADHD or like the two play together really well.
that's awesome.
Yeah. Like I vividly remember the first time I had my own birthday party, and it was like with my friends from school. I'm from suburban Virginia, so like all white. And I think I told everybody the party was at 3, and like people showed up at 3, and I was so fucking confused because like my hair was wet. I wasn't in my dress. I was like, what are you doing here? And it's because it was 3, and white people show up at 3 when you say 3.
Unless they're ADHD.
Unless they're ADHD, which apparently nobody's parents were.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
It was like such a moment of cultural shock. I got way off course with that. What were we talking about? Accommodations.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Accommodations,
So-
but like putting a target on your back.
And does that, yeah, we talk about that too with the new admin. It's like, I don't know, do you give like different advice now to people?
Oh,
I do for sure when it comes to autism diagnoses. We're talking a lot more actively around like what are we documenting, what goes in your chart, what does not, and what are the risks of that. Which like, yeah, is bonkers that we have to have that conversation that way. But same with in workplaces. I mean, what's really hard, and anybody who's neurodivergent knows this from felt experience, like you can put a target on your back. Like you could be very capable, and because of societal misconceptions and biases and shit, like if you say the wrong diagnosis per HR, like they'll figure out how to get rid of you. And so you have to be careful depending on your workplace. So that's why, like, I mean, I think it's important to be really thoughtful around whether you want to disclose, or whether you can make tweaks for yourself or advocate for tweaks with like your boss without having to share a diagnosis or get it put in your HR file or whatever. And it's so shitty that we live in a world that we have to think that way. And I hope that that changes because I see younger generations doing better with neurodivergence, but yeah, it's not always safe for people, especially if you're multiply marginalized, if you're LGBTQ, if you're BIPOC, like it's like triple targets on your back, you know? So being really mindful of that.
I had to because I was tired of at work everyone thinking I was a giant fucking bitch. Just because in meetings my face would just listening. I would just be listening. And they would just think I was being, or when I would say something and it was like X, Y, and Z, and there wasn't, you know, a vocal smiley face or an exclamation point attached to it. And it was just so isolating. But at the same time, it depends on who you tell, because then you get handled with like kid gloves or, you know, get talked down. So it's a lose-lose situation sometimes.
Sometimes it is.
Yeah. I like recently went to a training on like writing accommodation letters, like how to do it better effectively and how to still be like neurodiversity affirming. And it's a fine line, right? Because you got to demonstrate that this person is struggling, but then like I am very passionate about being neurodiversity affirming, and so it feels like very counter to my intuition to write out what's hard, or like what somebody is struggling with.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like knowing the audience that you're writing for though, but like you can write letters that say, you know, I have this diagnosis. This is actually what this means. This is not what it means. It doesn't mean I can't do this job. It doesn't mean that I don't have the requisite skills. It doesn't mean that I don't care about these things. What it does mean is that like I communicate differently, or I need a lot more structure for my brain to be able to like meet expectations. And so you can speak to both when you write a letter to HR for accommodations or things like that. And so, I mean, part of my job as a psychologist and then also as a coach is like helping people figure out like what they want to advocate for and how versus what they want to do for themselves. Like, do you just want to have your own set of rules and scaffolding and accountability and support that's from your own personal life that still helps you out in the workspace?
Yeah. I do want to take a second to go to chat if that's okay. First of all, apparently, like everybody wants you to diagnose them. So, except my mother, who is actually here and was like, "No, thank you." Boomers. Cosmic said, "Society has put so much stigma on taking medicine that the amount of people who intentionally go undiagnosed is staggering." It's very true. Tuck says, "So true. Time is so hard." And I would love to read more studies of how ADHD is expressed or seen culturally. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what studies to direct you towards, but I know from like my reading and learning that like there's different expressions of ADHD and then also different levels of like social acceptance of those kinds of struggles combined with like just general knowledge base. So, for example, Indians culturally like are catching up on mental health, but like generally haven't been stellar about considering it as a real thing or like understanding it. And so the tendency to operate off really old stereotypes and then hold a lot of judgment is pretty high. That being said, that I see that shifting. I see it shifting in my family. I see it shifting in like the Indians that reach out to me online, like trying to get a better understanding of it. But it's easy to write off kids who are having like a sensory meltdown as being like naughty kids, because like compliance is so heavy in that culture. And so it's easy to write them off as like being misbehaved, being naughty, being bad in some way, or like parents that are like too lax versus like, hey, this kid is like overstimulated, it's too loud, they're feeling hot and they're melting down. Like that's not the same thing. Or a kid not listening being read as like just being disrespectful versus like they cannot attend to what you're saying when there's this much other stuff attract like getting their attention.
I don't have authority
Um,
issues. It's just my no,
I mean, you might also,
preach. Please, please.
but yeah, I think like everybody reads it through like cultural lenses, and I think the expressions show up through cultural lenses. So you'll see in cultures where like propriety is really important and respect is really important, like you're going to have a lot more of the internalized experience or the smaller actions versus the bigger behaviors. There's going to be different levels of comfort about talking about it and different meanings attributed to it. So yeah, I don't have like a set of studies to direct you towards, but I know that there's a lot out there about really all of mental health. And then with neurodivergence being one that we're like relatively recent and new on learning more about, like it makes sense that it hasn't kind of proliferated everywhere that I can speak.
Yeah. Manic said, "Building one's scaffolding for success is so vital. I have various ways of keeping my attention issues at bay, and it gives the surface appearance that I'm constantly distracted." Oh, it gives the appearance that you're distracted?
Interesting.
Huh.
I wonder if that's like around, and you can comment, but like what I was saying when you really need to like wiggle or move around or
Yeah.
not make eye contact so you can listen better, things like that, that could get read as
Yeah. Yeah,
being distracted.
for sure.
Have you found that working with adults, late diagnosed, have you found that that's changed the way you parent at all with your own kids? Like, has it made you given you more empathy or like changed anything for you as a parent?
Ooh, yes, but like everything changes everything as a parent by the minute. Um, so yes, because I have way more compassion for the same like behaviors and things that I see in my kiddo. So my son is autistic. He's also for sure ADHD, but too young to be diagnosed yet. Um, but I think through like what were the things that like I found so life-changing to learn in adulthood that these folks that I'm talking to are finding so life-changing to learn in adulthood, and like how do I teach my kid that younger so it's not life-changing, or it's life-changing like in a positive way, not like in a grief-filled way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we also, and this I don't know if this is just because of the neurodivergence or if this is just because I'm a psychologist so my kids are screwed, but we talk a lot about feelings. We talk a lot about um what we need to regulate, which like I know I didn't grow up with. I don't think most people in our generation grew up with a ton of that. Um, so my little guy, he's 4, and like he will tell you like I need some space, or I'm feeling really sad right now. And my favorite phase was when he would say he was disappeared, by which he meant disappointed. When he would be like, "Mom, I'm disappeared."
I'm not mad. I'm just disappeared, Mom. Aw.
Yeah. And even things like I don't know where he got this from, and it like killed me the first time I heard it, but like when I get grumpy and I will name like, "Hey, I'm feeling frustrated," and he'll go, "Do you still love me?" And I say like, "Yes, of course, like there is nothing that will make me not love you." And then he goes, "So you can love me when you're grumpy?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And he's like, "And I can love you when I'm grumpy?" And I was like, "Yes, you can." But like I implicitly know that as an adult. I don't think I like implicitly knew that as a kid. Like that's an easy thing to conflate. And
True.
so it's just,
Oh
and
yeah.
again, I don't know whether to attribute that to working with neurodivergence or whether to attribute that to just being a shrink
Well,
and therefore being all in my feels.
with the perfectionism, when you have a parent say I'm disappointed, that's like, oh, well then I am not perfect and not loved. So like the fact that you are being like one is not contingent on the other so early, especially for a neurodivergent kid, I'm telling you, probably means the world. Like
Oh,
it's
truly.
hugely helpful.
Yeah.
I also like, I'm sure someday I will say it. I have not yet said that I'm disappointed because as an Indian kid, like there is no worse thing to hear than disappointed. Like you could tell me you're mad at me all day, but if you tell me you're disappointed, I'm gonna like crumble. So I don't think I've actually told him that.
Yeah.
I'm sure he picked that up from like
Ooh.
Miss Rachel or something. But like yeah. Uh I use grumpy and frustrated a lot though, because it is very grumpy and frustrating to have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old that won't get out the door in the morning. So
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, two young children, period. It's just
Yes. And they're just like, have you guys, I guess I don't know how many non-parents have seen this, but like Zootopia, have you seen the animated movie? So there's a scene where they go to the DMV and it's literal sloths working at the DMV and they're moving like at negative speed. And like that's what it feels like when you tell your kids, like, okay, it's time to go, we're late. And they're like, yes, here, go.
And they have to do it themselves. You can't do
Yes.
it for them. You can't do it
Yes.
fast either because it has to be them.
Yes.
God help you.
Yeah. My almost 2-year-old is like in the I can do it myself, but also do it for me, but also not that. And so it's like, I need shoes, but you can't put them on my feet, but then I can't put them on my feet, so we're just gonna sit here and cry. Face.
oh god. Your kids are actually the exact same ages as my niece and nephew. So that's yeah.
That's fun. I mean, it's a very fun age, but there's a lot of frustration.
Yeah.
So my
My
kid asks that question a lot.
what my nephew used to say that we always thought was so funny. He doesn't say this anymore. It was like when he was like 2 and 3, I think. Is when someone would say something that he didn't like or like tell him to do something that he didn't want to do,
Mhm.
he would just look at you and go, "You are not saying any words." Basically, I think like, I don't understand you. Like definitely understood, but you're not saying words.
Ooh.
oh, my kid will be like, what did you say? What did you say? Or just like straight up ignore me.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
yep, I am just talking to a wall.
my nephew does that.
So,
As far as boundaries go, have you found like doing this work, have you found that like you've had to set different boundaries, or has this helped you like create better boundaries between, I don't know, just like at work or in your personal life, or advocate for yourself, or is there anything around that?
that's a good question. I mean, I think early on in being a therapist, you have to get good with your boundaries because it's so easy to take work home. Um, and that always like that gets fuzzy from time to time. I think it I've kind of fudged all the boundaries on everything going into the neurodivergent world because it started with me learning about myself and me learning about my kid, and then I just kind of channeled it all the learning and the hyper focus into my practice. Um, so I mean, I'm sure it drives my husband nuts when I go into like, well, actually, as a psychologist, here's the thing that I know more than you. And like,
No, you mansplain
this
to
is
your
a
husband as much as you want, Pri. Please. We need more women splaining. Sorry.
I love that. Women's planning. Um, but at the same time, like he is a lovely human and like appreciates learning. And so as long as, I'm not being a dick about it, most of the time he like is also asking, like, what do I do with this? Or what does this mean? Or um, debating the difference between a tantrum and a meltdown or things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
I think right now my boundaries are pretty fuzzy when it comes to like all the things I'm learning and applying at work and then home. But in terms of clients like that, it's like habit at this point to not bring too much of that stuff home.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I think I asked a question wrong. And I didn't mean boundaries. I meant more just so like, so instead of my husband just thinking I'm a gigantic fucking bitch, now I'm able to say, actually, when you change the plans, it's an unexpected change and I didn't like it, and now my whole day is ruined because I just like kind of being able to like
Yes,
verbalize and explain
articulate it.
why.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
Hmm.
sorry.
Yeah, it's fun because my husband, he's gonna be really mad when he listens to this. He definitely has ADHD, but like vehemently denies it. But a very
You're like
different
you just like
flavor
run
of
around the house
ADHD.
chasing him, being like, "I'm diagnosing you. You're diagnosed."
Well, it was more just like I started doing assessments and would just like giggle as I was asking questions because like all of them fit. And so he was my guinea pig when I was like learning some of the new software and stuff. But
Nice.
um he's a very different flavor of ADHD than me. Like I am very combined slash mostly hyperactive,
Mm-hmm.
and he is like inattentive space cadet, like loses stuff all the time and zones out all the time and starts a sentence and doesn't finish it and that sort of thing. Um, but like I've still had to do a lot of the explaining because just because we both have ADHD doesn't mean, like I said, we don't have the same flavor of ADHD. The things I struggle with are not the things he struggles with. Like he's fine with time. I live in a time warp. And so it drives him bonkers that I'm always late. But
Mm-hmm.
now we realize, like, oh, time blindness actually is a thing. My brain actually does do time differently. And so he has started giving me more reminders, which I experience as helpful, of like, okay, we need to leave in an hour. I think you should start to get ready. And I'll be like, nah, it's not fine. And then he'll be like, okay, well, it's now 45 minutes and you definitely need to go get ready. like, um, or like, we're going to leave in like 10 minutes, which I think if I hadn't been so in tune with the fact that I'm so bad at this, like could get experienced as infantilizing or annoying.
I
But
was gonna
because I
say,
know,
you're not my dad.
well, like I know I'm so bad at it, and
Yes.
so I actually find it helpful. And he's asked too of like, is this
Yeah.
helpful? So that's good too. Um,
My partner does
but
the
sometimes
same
we just
thing
like,
with me.
yeah, sometimes we just need them to be our like, our little
Time
executive function
police.
center.
We call it the time police. Yeah, the time
I love that.
police.
But yeah, I think I both like explain to him and understand my reactions a little bit better. Like when I get really overstimulated, this is a good one. Like with my kiddos, by the end of the day, after I've been working all day and then I'm getting home and I'm trying to make dinner and they want the TV on and there's two toddlers that are like losing their shit because I just got home from school and like my husband's watching something on his phone. Like my brain feels like it's gonna explode and I lose my temper because I'm like so overstimulated. And so now I've got language for that. And so I can explain that to him of like, I am just really overstimulated. So I'm going to put my headphones in and I'm going to listen to something and I'm going to not be mom for a little while. And so I'll listen to something while I cook dinner, for example. And that way I've drowned out all the other noise and I can re-regulate and I don't have to like be part of the circus. Um, and so I both like feel nicer to myself because I get that I'm not frustrated because I have zero frustration tolerance. I'm like frustrated because I'm overstimulated. And then my husband like also gets it as like I'm not trying to tag out on parenting. I just like my brain is imploding. Which is not, I don't think he like ever gets overstimulated. So it's definitely a foreign experience to him.
Of course.
Having the language is so one of the biggest fights we ever had is the first time we went on vacation, and it was to the Oregon coast, which I'd never been, and he was so excited, and we're making our way, but like the car trip was taking forever, and what the fuck is happening? And he's like, "Oh, I just thought, we'd take the scenic route,"
That's right.
because he wanted to show me everything. And I lost my fucking mind. And I was like, we could have been there hours ago because we didn't get from point A to point B, and no one told me that we were meandering. And it was just like, again,
Rebecca hates
what
meandering
like
anyway.
a giant fucking bitch was actually like, oh, we have deviated. No one told me about this plan, and this is inefficient.
Yeah.
So, like, being able to verbalize, yeah, is so much better. And I'm still a bitch, but like a bitch with closed captions.
I love that.
I'm clipping this, by the way. I'm gonna clip it. So.
Yeah, for sure. That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I think and this is like part of my last two episodes or last two little videos on Instagram are about like relationships, and I had 1,000,000,001 people being like, "Can you do mixed neurotype? Can you do ADHD, ADHD? Can you do ADHD autism? Can you do ADHD, ADHD?" And I'm like, okay, so like some of this stuff is actually universal, and like point one is come up with your own language, like figure out the communication and like your own way of naming what's happening with each other, so that you can again understand. Like we have this ridiculous notion in our like pop culture world that like if your partner loves you, they should intuitively know what you need or they should know what you're thinking.
Ooh.
And that's just not accurate. Humans fucking suck at reading minds. Even those of us that are trained to like really understand other people. And so like if you can ditch the idea that like your partner should understand and come up with like shared language around what is happening for you, it just opens up a whole new like realm of connection and a realm of navigating minus conflict or conflict without it exploding that I think like a lot of couples are missing because they just don't have the words, like you said.
Can I tell you the meanest thing he ever said to me in our entire marriage of almost 20 years?
Oof, okay.
I don't think you really care that much about being organized.
Oh, actually, hang on. You kind of said that to me this year.
I mean, listen.
Wow, Rob, I'm on your side. Rob, I'm on your side. I'm on your side, Rob.
But it would just like I'd leave cabinets open or like I'd start organizing something and just forget, and it's just like I don't mean to leave it there. I just forgot about it, and I really do care and I do try, but like it's just not gonna work. So once we agree that these things just aren't gonna happen, then it's better to be married. So, but that was the meanest fucking thing he's ever said, and I'm like, I really do care. And sorry, Jamie, as I'm saying this out loud, I think I did say that to you.
You did say that to me, and I was so offended.
I know. I'm sorry.
This is therapy now, so
it is a like good sign that the meanest thing your partner has said to you is that. Says a lot about your relationship.
But you guys are doing great.
Well, it's so hard because like ADHD and especially ADHD has so many like contradictions. Like we need structure. We don't have the executive function to create structure. We need organization, but like we need to also see everything to know that it exists. So like in my house, my husband and I both like get so dysregulated when everything is like cluttered and disastrous because 2 toddlers, 2 ADHDers. And also like I can tell you what he ate for every meal and where he ate it because like the peanut butter and the jelly and the bread are out where he made the sandwiches for the kids, and like the coffee beans are still like out from when he made the coffee, and the coffee cup is wherever he sat and drank the coffee. And it's just because like out of sight, out of mind, and like everything is always out. So it's immediately very cluttered. And so it's this horrible mix of like, I really want it to be organized and clear and like not cluttered. And also, when I do that, I forget everything. And so I just need to leave things out or I forget to put them away. And so it just is like a constant yo yo.
100%.
I don't know. It sounds like somebody's drinking a lot of coffee, you know, to compensate for undiagnosed ADHD.
Somebody's drinking a
Mi-
lot of coffee.
Mr. Dr. Pre.
Yes.
I haven't heard a lot of people talk about like those contraindications within like ADHD or autism. Like I don't hear that a lot, like those two things being at, at odds but still existing. Like that's not something I see covered a lot at all, actually.
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
nice to hear you bring it up.
I think you're totally right, especially if, like for ADHDers, like the autistic side of you and the ADHD side of you are often like diametrically opposed, and that can be really hard to navigate. Like, wanting spontaneity, but also needing like a plan to feel regulated, and like those two being at odds, or like both seeking and avoiding stimulation at the same time, or like really wanting to connect with people socially, but then also being utterly drained by it. And so it's a lot of like balancing act between those two things. And yeah, even with an ADHD, like we know what we need and we often rebel against what we need, or like we like cannot make the thing that we need, but we know that we need it. And so it just feels like very out of reach. And so I think like, yeah, I think all of neurodivergence is full of those kinds of
And if you're not
opposing
diagnosed,
Yeah.
going to a psychiatrist without the diagnosis who's not well versed in this leads to so many diagnoses of like, well, you must be depressed or anxious or whatever. And it's like
bipolar,
and then
bipolar or borderline,
that's
like
a
those
huge
two all the
one.
fucking time. Yeah.
Yes. And it's like then you feel crazy and you're not. You're just at odds with your own brain and no one's taught you how to deal with it, which not to like market your own, course, but like that's what people should take.
No,
it
that's what we're here for. What do you mean?
I mean, feel free to market.
Yeah.
But I mean, especially like, hang on, I lost my thought. I just did a you.
Now it's a you, Rebecca. Take that.
You did an us, great.
I did an us. I just did an us. What were we saying?
I love that.
Diametrically opposed, teaching people bipolar, borderline, misdiagnosis.
Oh yeah, the misdiagnoses. Another like misdiagnosis that kills me is like people that don't understand the difference between burnout and depression, especially autistic burnout and depression, because neurodivergent burnout is more all-encompassing and more systemic than neurotypical burnout. And then autistic burnout looks a lot like depression, but needs something polar opposite to what depression needs. And so many people, myself included, before I was better educated, like accidentally do harm because like the recommendations or the treatments or whatever are actually the polar opposite of what that person needs to get out of burnout. So like with depression, recommendation number 1 is behavioral activation. With autistic burnout, like that will just kick you further into burnout. Like what you actually need is probably to do less and see less people and not connect for a little while and reset.
Yes.
And so if you don't understand the difference between the two, like that throws so many people off. And like, yeah, so many people that come to me for assessment have collected a laundry list of diagnoses over the years from people that like couldn't, use Occam's razor and find like the common explanation that accounts for all the different diagnoses.
Well, plus those screeners too that you take. I mean, it's gonna look like, yeah, I'm depressed as shit, but not really. But like the screeners that you're given at the doctor's office, if you fill them out,
more than usual, I can't get out of bed. Like, yep.
Right. No, it's not depression, but like there's no differentiating. So yeah, having to struggle through that and like try to explain just.
But all of that is like linked in your brain, correct? So like, depression, anxiety, ADHD.
Yeah, I mean they all like co-occur often, and this is where like working with somebody who actually like knows what they're talking about is so helpful, of like teasing apart like what came first, or like what's the first domino.
Asha-coaching.com, everybody. Asha-coaching.com.
Thank you. But yeah, I mean the like for me, like I think I was diagnosed as like having generalized anxiety, and it never quite like felt like it hit all the like it didn't quite feel right because I didn't really think I was generally an anxious person. I was just like very overwhelmed. And then once I realized it was the ADHD, like treating the ADHD like drastically reduced the anxiety. And so that's why it kills me when there are providers that say like, "Oh, I can't diagnose you with ADHD because you're anxious and you got to control your anxiety first." And I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Like, how are you supposed to do that without treating the ADHD or without diagnosing it?" Um, and so like understanding the kind of like the chain there and also understanding that it can co-occur. It is really normative and expected and adaptive to be anxious when the world feels overstimulating to you or unpredictable to you.
Yeah.
When you can't make sense of like other people's behaviors or they can't make sense of yours. You understand them, they can't understand you. Of course you're socially anxious. Like it would be ridiculous not to be. And so like kind of like yeah, if you can meet criteria for all these diagnoses, but like is that actually a useful way of looking at it, or is there something else that is like a more holistic understanding of that person that is more useful?
Yeah. I know. Yeah, I went. It was a night. What'd you say? Sorry.
I said mic drop.
Yeah, just silence. Um, yeah, I know. Now I'm like losing my train of thought. You guys, pulling a Rebecca over
Contagious.
here. Just kidding. Um,
I'm sorry, Rebecca.
No, that's okay. Is there anything else, like, is there anything we haven't covered that like you really want to drive home or that you don't think people are hearing enough of? Because I know we've talked a lot kind of around, but is there anything that we really didn't get to that you
I
think people need to be hearing?
I think at the heart of it, and I know this is like so cheesy, and I literally say this every call of mine with my program,
mhm.
like if you're neurodivergent, you are not broken. You are not less than, you are not deficient. Um, you just have a different operating system. We're talking like Mac and Windows. And so once you understand your operating system and you understand how to work within it and you understand what to advocate for to make it work, like there is nothing wrong with you. You've just been
Yeah.
trying to live according to a different OS. And so I don't think people I think people are getting better about talking about that, and there's like a growing collection of like neurodiversity affirming psychologists, the med providers, and coaches and such. But um, if you're working with somebody who's telling you like go learn social skills or here's how to mask when you aren't asking for that, or somebody who's telling you that like you're doomed on XYZ, like drop that shit because
Find someone new.
there's so much yeah, like there's so much awesomeness in neurodivergence and there's a lot of shit that makes it really hard. Like I'm not team neurodivergence is a superpower. Um because it's still disabling. Like we still live in a world that is designed for neurotypicals and therefore we struggle. But like if you can design your world to work better for you, I don't think you'll struggle as much. So giving yourself permission to do that, to like meet yourself where you actually are and to recognize that that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you, I think it's really important.
Second mic drop.
I think my last question is what is your ADHD go-to food? Ours is
Ooh,
Uncrustables.
what is my go-to food? Cold Stone ice cream. I eat
Ooh.
that so much that the people there now start laughing when I walk in
They
because it just
laugh at
You have
opened.
your
you.
own song.
I just opened like near my house because it used to be further away. And when I was in high school, I went so often that when I went off to college and I came back from my first break, they were like, "Where have you been? Are you okay?"
We were worried. We
So
were so worried about you.
right about you. So it's probably Cold Stone ice cream.
That's so great.
Um, how else do I like
Get a cold. You
always
got to
go
get a
for?
Cold Stone partnership now. You got to do it.
I probably should.
Yeah,
I wonder if they do those.
we're trying to get Uncrustables and Alaska Airlines.
You, ooh, that would be a good one. That'd be a useful one.
But really, it's just like a grab and go, like a grab. Oh, and then those Costco cheese and fruit and nut packs too that you just grab and like,
Oh yeah.
I have those in my fridge.
yep.
Try to think what else is um because my kids like live on snacks. I can't get them to eat food.
Rebecca and I eat
So
like toddlers. Like we eat like toddlers most of the
Yes.
time.
there's a lot of peanut butter in my house. Like that is like
Adult
always a staple
Lunchables.
food.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just when they really started doing this, I don't, well, they started doing like the whole girl dinner trend on
Mhm.
social media, and I was offended because I was like, "That's not girl dinner. That's literally what I eat every
Just
other
dinner.
That's
night is
also
specifically
that's toddler dinner. So
Also toddler
toddler
dinner,
dinner."
yeah.
yeah.
We also have a lot of Kraft mac and cheese, and my husband and I definitely
Ooh.
will take a serving when we make it for the
Mhm.
kids because that's also a safe food in our house.
Have you tried?
Um,
Having kids is the
Oh,
best thing. Oh, sorry, I was just say as far as like picky eaters and ADHD
what is?
eaters, having kids is the best thing because it's just like snacks all the time and easy things to eat. The best.
Yeah, and you like go through cycles of like I will eat this one thing forever, and then I forget it exists and I moved on to my next one. So, like there was like a chunk of time where there is this like snack mix at Costco that has like peanuts and mini chocolate peanut butter cups and chocolate chips and peanut butter chips and pretzels. Like it was so good. And I bought it so many times like that I think I burned myself out on it because I just like went through so many Costco containers.
well,
Stuff.
then you get like sick about it too. I go through that a lot. Like I can't remember. Did you do a why the fuck is this so hard on food and eating? I can't remember.
I did it on meal planning, but I didn't do it
Okay.
on like other
Cuz
parts of food. I know there's a lot of parts of food.
I hyper focus on a food and that's what I'll do. I'll just like eat it and that
Hmm.
like even if it's like literally like I got takeout from this place and I got pad thai here and it was like perfect. Then I'll like keep getting
Hmm.
that pad thai like week after week until I like look at it and I'm like, ugh, I couldn't possibly.
There's a sushi place here that is like a hole in the wall sushi place I stumbled upon my first time, like out of my first office. And I also know them by name because I'm there so often. But I actually was eating there so much because they have the spicy tuna sushi bowl that is just so good. Um, that I had to like look up like how much tuna can you eat before you get mercury poisoning. Going there so often. It was in my building, and now it's like two buildings over, and it's delicious. And like the owners are lovely humans. And now, like, I usually order online and pick it up because I'm like in a rush. But if I forget to order online, like, I walk in and they're like, "Your usual pre?" I'll be like, "Yes, please."
Oh,
So, I haven't burned out on that yet. I'm very grateful because I will
that's
be
great.
sad if I burn out on that.
Yeah.
I'm
Especially
definitely like I'm a food person, so I eat according to my mood, but I eat a variety.
yeah. I am too, but like I just I guess I'm a picky eater, but it's that thing where I just get very focused on something and it has to be this. And then in the same vein or in the other vein I get super burnt out on it and like couldn't possibly stand it. And then it's like hard for me to figure out what to eat because like sometimes everything sounds bad, but I think that's also like ADHD meds for me does that.
Yeah, but then you
So,
call me and I tell you what to eat, and then you're good.
sometimes
I definitely eat based on my mood, and I have been known to cry if a meal was not what I wanted it to be. So,
Oh,
it's rough. It's rough
sure.
if you have like your expectations and then it's
like you
yeah.
know what you were craving and it didn't live up. Oof, devastating. My husband thinks
Crying
that's
over food.
bonkers. Yeah,
I
like
know.
he could not care less. If it's got the right calorie content, he's fine. When I started dating him, he would eat like plain quinoa, plain black beans, and like paste salsa, and that was his like regular meal. And he
Pace
didn't care at all.
pace salsa.
Yes. And that was it. Like that was it was unseasoned everything and salsa. And I was like, what is this? And he could like not wrap his head around the fact that like I would get teary over not having the right meal. Like it was just such a foreign world for
Yeah.
him. But now he knows.
That's that's boy dinner.
Oh
That's boy dinner.
god.
We don't eat boy dinner. That's
No.
disgusting.
Yeah, there's no part of me that wants that.
Genuinely, thank you so much for coming here. Like
Yeah.
I so appreciate you taking the time to just answer all of our many questions. It's nice to have somebody who's knows what she's talking about, is an
Thank
expert in
you.
this. We really appreciate it.
I had so much fun chatting with you guys. It's been fun getting to know you through all the like planning and stuff.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, no, this is fun.
we like honestly we always tell our guests too like we should have you back on sometime like we would love to.
Yeah. Tell me when.
When is your next
Yeah.
coaching cohort start? Sorry.
This is a great question. I'm thinking it'll be late summer for the next cohort. I am starting to like collect names on a wait list for early enrollment. Um, I might be cooking up something else that I'll release before then. So that's why the timing is question mark. But for sure, it'll be either like late July or sometime in August, I think, that the next cohort runs.
Okay, cool. And
Yeah. So stay tuned. Follow me on the things. And
yeah,
I'll
do
let you
you,
know when it's open.
I know like we have it listed and everything, but do you want to talk about where people can follow you and find you? And
Yeah. So I am on Instagram and very newly on TikTok, as of this week, as at Asha Coach, Asha Coach. Um, AshaCoaching.com is where you can find the stuff about working with me individually or in the group coaching program. You can also sign up for the email list there so you get all the updates. I promise I don't spam you with too much salesy stuff. And then AshaMH.com is for my therapy practice, Asha Mental Health. So if you're looking for assessment, like adult ADHD or autism assessment, that's where you would go for that.
yeah, you hear that, guys? Everybody in chat who's like, diagnose me. That's where you go.
Yeah, and my email for both of those is Priyanka and then Asha Coaching or Asha MH. So
Perfect.
feel free to email me. I love chatting with people. So yeah,
We'll make sure to put all your info in the show notes as well.
for sure.
perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Pri,
Thank
so
you so
much
much.
for being here. Yeah, I just like we also have really enjoyed like getting to know you and just honestly like hanging out with you and talking with you. So thank you.
Yeah, it's been super fun.
Yeah, and thanks to everybody for being here for the live stream. We are a little late on posting last week's episode. There's just some audio issues.
Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. No, I had COVID. I messed up. I will get it out.
No, you did not mess
I'm fixing
up.
the audio.
We're having
I'll say,
audio
well,
issues.
I'm just saying, we're having audio issues, but I am on it.
It's not Rebecca's fault.
It is. I promise it's coming. I'll
Right.
take it. It's fine.
So
I'll
you have
take the fault.
COVID, so I think you're allowed to take care of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm
But it's
saying.
coming, I
Like, it's not your
promise.
fault. Yeah, I was just letting everybody know if they were like, "Where's last week's episode?"
Okay.
So it's coming. And then this episode will be live Tuesday next week as well. So thank you, everybody. Thank you again, Pri, and we'll see you all next week. See you burnouts next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. See you
Have a
guys.
great rest of the week.
See you
Bye.
guys.